What's good? What's good? You're with your boy Justin Henry here, live on the Justin Henry Show, Monday, April 24th. Busy weekend in professional sports over the weekend. Obviously, NBA, the big headliner. We had some boxing too. Boxing was crazy. We saw Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia, big, heavily promoted boxing match. But NBA finally has some close games, man. I'm gonna talk to my guy Matt here in just a minute about it. But one of the big takeaways for me, obviously, as a Laker fan, it was good to see the Lakers get the win. And we'll talk about Dylan Brooks and all the shit that's going on with him. Obviously, we're going to cover some NBA draft too. We got a guest today. Normally it's me, Matt, Nick, the crew, the Champions Round crew, but we got a guest today. My guy Sam Wagman's going to come on and join us, talk NFL draft rumors here in just a little bit at the top of the next hour. But we're going to go over some predictions, talk players. And then also, man, like I said, still a lot of NBA to be played. First round is still going on. But we saw the breakout of a star. Yeah, I'm talking about Anthony Edwards. The guy is a future Hall of Famer. And I don't say that lightly, like a top 25 player of all time. We're going to be talking about Anthony Edwards with the greats. Now, I know we're going to look and say that's an overreaction. The kids, he's got a lot of time to play. But when you can see the it factor, and in this Minnesota Timberwolves game, the effort that he put up against the Nuggets, we know for certain Anthony Edwards is going to be a very special player. I'm willing to put him in this next generation. He is going to be the face of the league. Now, we talked about Jason Tatum, Nikola Jokic, Giannis. There's a lot of players right now that could fit that mold, right? Like players that are the best player in the league. But what I see from Anthony Edwards is a killer, guy that makes big buckets, that's taking on the best player in individual matchups and leading a team right now. He don't have no quit. This team was down 0-3, and he said, you know what? I still think we're in it. I still think we can have a chance to come win this series. I don't want to get swept. And he shows the signs of a leader at the age of 21. I'm all in on Anthony Edwards being the next mega superstar of the league and the face of the NBA. This is a guy that has all the talent in the world, all the athleticism in the world, the mental that you want to see out of a leader, out of a top player. Not just an all-star. This guy's not just a superstar. This guy's going to be a future Hall of Famer. He's going to win an NBA championship, and we're going to be talking about him among the all-time greats. Think like Kobe Bryant. Think MJ. This is the same caliber of type of talent. Now, obviously, he has to go through and play his career injury-wise. He has to go through and play and make sure, he does get those championships in scoring titles and accolades, MVPs. But all of that is in the wheelhouse for Anthony Edwards. And I talked about my guy, Kobe. I had to wear the shirt today. Kobe, my guy. That's Anthony Edwards is going to be the next guy up. So when we talk about all-time greats, get ready because Anthony Edwards is coming in fast. My guy, I got to see if he approves of the message, my guy, Matt. And y'all know him as Mbone HD. What's good, my dude, Matt? How you living, dog?
I'm doing well, and I couldn't agree any more with everything you just said there, Justin.
I love Ant, bro. Like we were talking about how he was kind of struggling, the playoffs. But when I make that Kobe comparison, I really think back to how we all said the same thing about young Kobe Bryant in his first few, NBA playoff series. The air balls against Utah. We've seen them. We've heard about the adversities and things that he went through. You feel like Ant is like the next guy because there's a lot of other really good talent in the NBA.
No, there was a stat that came out last night that Ant had. I think he now has more 30-point games under the age of 22 than Kobe. I think he's only trailing LeBron James. And it's funny when you look back at when he was drafted, there was question marks about his work ethic. Does he really want to play? There make people make like comparisons about like his diet and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And when I watch Anthony Edwards play basketball, I think to myself, like, this is a guy that in 5-10 years could be the face of the NBA.
Yeah, I think it's going to happen sooner than that. Like when we talk about Ant, the one thing he's really resilient. Now, I'm not sure if this Minnesota team is the best fit for him, right? With Rudy and Cat. Conley's a great veteran piece to have. But at the end of the day, I think it may take a move, right?
Yeah.
A long-term move, somewhere where he goes to a bigger city, bigger market for Anthony Edwards to really shine and get the respect he deserves. Most superstars play in bigger cities. I mean, you got your exceptions with like LeBron in Cleveland, but most of the superstars after their first rookie deal head to a bigger market. And I can see that really happening with Anthony Edwards because to me, this guy has all the intangibles. He has the size, the athleticism, the heart, the mental, right? We've seen him with the competitive stuff early on in his career. He was like, I'm good at baseball, I'm good at golf, I'm number one at video games. Like, no matter what it is, he feels like he's the greatest. And I kind of agree right now. He's this next wave of young superstars. He seems to be leading the pack at age 21. I can see him handling this league for the next decade.
And I love how after the game, they did a little post game, and he just basically just complimented all of his teammates, not even talking about himself, just saying how everyone stepped up. And that's what you want to see from someone that's going to be a leader down the future. I think Ant needs to eventually get out of Minnesota. I think if what he's doing right now, like we talked about before the show, if that was in New York, I think that would be the biggest storyline in all of basketball. I think that's all anyone would talk about. We'll see what happens down the line, but tuning in, I feel like right now watching Anthony Edwards play basketball is a treat and something that I don't want to take for granted.
Yeah, 114-108 victory for the Wolves in overtime late last night. And this was a game that the Timberwolves were winning, right? But then we seen the Nuggets really start to charge back. They were up by 12 points with 2 minutes left. The Wolves were. And this was a game that, you could kind of sense that the Wolves really wanted to win this game, but the Nuggets stormed back. 12-0 run to end the end of regulation. And then the Wolves won it with the big dagger three by Anthony Edwards there in overtime. So it's this series, I thought it was over, and I still think it is. The Nuggets are probably the best, I would say, the best collection of talent in the Western Conference. Not necessarily best superstar. Do I think they're coming out the West? But this is the best collection of talent in the Western Conference. This is a real team. But the Wolves gave it to them, stuck it out. They showed heart. The series is going to go back to Denver 3-1. We'll see how it goes.
Nobody likes to foul out more than Karl-Anthony Towns. I swear he's got to lead the league in foul out. Like, my man fouls out of every single game that I tune into.
Man, it feels like it, but I don't know about this Minnesota team, man. We talked about it off air really quickly. It just felt like there was no energy in this game, Matt.
It's just like Jokic, it was interesting because Jokic played like an aggressive role. Like he wasn't looking to pass as much tonight. He took over. His shots were hitting. He was aggressive. I think he had 43 or how many points he scored? Oh, I think he scored over 40 points. He was fantastic last night. But it doesn't help that we went from watching MSG and then the Chase, and then eventually you had to go to Minnesota. And I saw ticket prices, in the lower bowl were under $100 to go to a playoff basketball game, which is just nuts to me. And
nuts.
That just kind of sums up Minnesota for me.
Well,
honestly.
It is what it is, man. And Minnesota is obviously not the market, and they got to win some games too. Being down 3-0 doesn't help the energy level, right?
Exactly.
Like if you're down 3-0, you're not going to sell a lot of tickets because people think it's over. But hopefully, I just want to see this team make some major changes. They went and got Gobert in the offseason last year. I think they're due for some better efforts here in the near future. A little bit of breaking news before tonight's game. Giannis is going to come back today, play game 4. He has missed the last 2 games, and so they've won one without him. The Bucks have, and they've lost one in Miami. The game is in Miami tonight. Miami's up 2-1. So a return is needed for this Bucks team. Giannis should be back for this game and have a pretty good impact. I feel this team has needed him since he went down early in game 1. And, in order for this Bucks team to really, because this Heat team smells blood in the water. You already know, like they're sharks, they're disciplined, and they made deep playoff runs in the past. So in order to get through this series and not have it be extended out too far, the Bucks do need to get Giannis back, and they need to have him be at least 85 to 90%.
I think Milwaukee is in a situation here where they would have liked to have sat Giannis out. They don't want Giannis to play, but they realize, and I think going into after game 1, they thought, okay, well, we can get by Miami without Giannis. And that's obviously not the case here. I also want to send my thoughts and prayers out to Victor Oladipo because
that was tough.
Just horrible, horrible, horrible things there. But Jimmy Butler and Miami, that bench looked great in game 3. I'm really interested to see how the adjustments that Milwaukee makes, because defensively, they have not looked good. They don't look anything like themselves. And obviously getting Giannis back is a huge thing. And I fully expect Milwaukee to come into this game hungry. They do not want to go down heading back. And I think we're going to see a big game from Giannis here tonight.
Yeah, big game from Giannis, big game from the rest of the supporting cast too. They played well at times, but that's what you get. You get inconsistency with role players. That's why they are role players and not superstars. And with Giannis, you get a little bit of that consistency back. The defense has to draw attention to him. So obviously for the Bucks, it's a big move. But for the Heat, man, losing Victor Oladipo, who has been he's been a star in the past, an all-star type player. Obviously not that here in for the Miami Heat. But he's been a component for this Heat team, a good bench piece. And to see him go down, Patella, especially after everything he's gone through to get back on the court, patella tendon torn. We may have seen some of the last games of Victor Oladipo's career. Unfortunately, I don't want to put that on him, but it kind of feels like the tail end of that for him. So I think the Bucks can go in there, steal a win in Miami. Miami hasn't been the strongest team at home. We talked about that last show. They haven't been the strongest team at home, but they did protect home court in game 3. I could see them in game 2. Game 4, kind of slipping up here, going back to some of those old bad habits. Guys, before we continue on, if you want to join in the chat, hop in there, drop your thoughts, your hot takes, questions, comments. We want to interact with you guys here on the show. And then also make sure you guys download the Champions Round app, get a 100% deposit match when you use the code playoffs. So it's playoff time in the NBA. Get your money up. If you're gonna do it, get your money up, man. Live bets, like whatever you guys need, man. The live spicy slips, bro, goes crazy, especially in the NBA playoffs. There was 4 games. Like you can literally sit there all day and play spicy slips, bro. But we can't talk NBA playoffs. And you already know what's coming up. I don't want to hear it, Matt. We can't talk NBA playoffs without talking about LeBron James and the Los Angeles Lakers, my favorite topic of all time. I love talking Laker basketball, don't you, Matt?
I know you. I just knew after that game you were just waiting for this moment to talk about LeBron and that Grizzlies game because it was over after about the first 4 minutes of the game. Even the first 2 possessions, you could just see this Lakers team had a different mentality. They weren't going to take any of Memphis' stuff. They took Dylan Brooks' words personally, and it showed.
It shows on my face. Big smile. Game 3 was this weekend, and the Lakers handled business at home. Dylan Brooks, obviously, came into the game talking big shit, bro. Oh, he's old. You got to drop 40 in my head for me to respect you. Talking a lot. And then LeBron and the Lakers came out, and you have to actually, you can talk a lot of shit, but you actually got to come out and play the games. There's another team on the other side there. Yeah, I think this Lakers team took it personally. Biggest lead after the first quarter in NBA history, 35-9 after the first quarter. The score is 18-2 for a little bit. Like, I was concerned that they were going to put up 30 points the entire game. And all you see is Dylan Brooks just missing shots.
Dylan Brooks. That's all it was.
The game was in his head. So as much as he was trying to get on in the Lakers' head, I think he got in his own head and his teammates were affected. The whole flow of the game, you could tell the Lakers came out with energy. Memphis came out flat in the first game at home too. Dylan Brooks, you got to be smarter than that. And at the end of the game, he didn't have much to say. No, Dylan Brooks didn't even attend the media day. Like, that to me was so loud. He didn't have to say anything. LeBron said, I don't have to make no statements.
Yeah, Dylan Brooks, you're not that guy, pal. You're just not that guy.
I respect the fact that that's who he is. Like, he's a gamer. He wants to bring it to the best competition, get himself amped up. But you can't be disrespectful to one of to the GOAT, in some people's opinion, mine. Right, but all-time great NBA players, leading scorer in NBA history, who's in year 20, still outplaying most of his competition. You got to show him more respect than that, especially for a team. The Memphis Grizzlies weren't just coming into this game like, oh, we're in a hope and a prayer to try to win. They were getting jaw back. They had just won a game 2. Like, there was some momentum for this Grizzlies team who talks a lot as front runners, but when things start to go against them, now they don't have a whole lot to say. So blowout win for the Lakers. The score was a little bit closer than the true story indicated. But hopefully we get an end to this Dylan Brooks, LeBron beef, because even in the game, I don't know if it was intentional. I don't want to put that on, but to see the way that Dylan Brooks reached in there, kind of gave LeBron the nut job, like going for the steal. What'd you think about that?
I was interested in like the pregame when you saw them talking, right? Because the fact that they kind of addressed what was going on, I was interested to see how that plays out. Yeah. It's Dylan Brooks. All the storylines are around him and LeBron. if that's a different player, if it's not LeBron, and if it's not Dylan Brooks, do I think that's worthy of an ejection? It's hard. I don't think that was. I'm gonna give Brooks the benefit of the doubt and say that he didn't intentionally do that to LeBron James. But
That's
in
what
the
it was. It
moment,
was all the stuff beforehand, the
yeah,
storyline stuff that got him ejected.
I completely agree. And it's, Josh scored what, 22 straight points there at the end. He did his thing, but at the end of the day, I think that Lakers Staples Center was rocking. Like, it
Rocking,
was
bro.
so loud. And the Grizzlies have just put themselves in such a bad situation. Like you said, this isn't a team, this isn't like Minnesota versus the Denver Nuggets. Like, this is a team that is the second best record in the West, right? They just won game 2. They have a shot here. And I think Dylan Brooks is totally taking them out of it.
He has, but there's still a lot of basketball to be played, right? There's a 7-game series for a reason. And as a basketball fan, more so than a Laker fan, as somebody who watches the game, this game 4 is going to be closer than people think. Everybody thinks, okay, the Lakers are at home. They've been the better team most of the series. It's over now, right? Obviously, just off a blowout win there in game 3. But there was a lot of emotion in that game. And we talk about emotional wins, not just in the NFL, but in the NBA, it happens as well. Like, things settle down. The Grizzlies did start to get in a groove there in the second half. They started to find their stroke, and Ja found his place dropping 45 in the game. It didn't even seem like 45. It was an effortless 45. So Memphis could really, tonight, this game, it's going to be a lot closer than people think, right? They're thinking this is going to be a repeat of game 3. I expect Memphis to come out with full energy. I don't think they take it. But I do think we get some crazy moments down the stretch in a competitive game. How you feeling about them? You feel the same way, bro? Like, are you thinking that Memphis can go in there and get, like, maybe even steal this one?
I think this is a huge game. I really do. When I look at how this is going to play out, I think the Lakers are going to win. I think there's no way Memphis plays anywhere near as poor as they did in game 3. But I also think this maybe could be a little bit of a trap game for the Lakers. I think, there's a part of me that, like, the Lakers, LA is going to win this game, in my opinion, right? But I think Memphis is going to come out fast. I wouldn't be surprised if they take an early lead. I expect a big game from LeBron James. I think this is the one where he turns it on. I think we're going to see a vintage LBJ performance.
We haven't even seen that yet.
That's the thing.
Crazy.
That's the scary thing about it. When I look at the series, like, it's like I'm waiting for LeBron to draw. I think, maybe 32, 33 points here, 8, 9, something around those lines.
Yeah, he hasn't had to do that. We haven't had to see, like, the Herculean effort from LeBron, because AD's really stepped up this series too. So good to see, even though it's been a little inconsistent, it's good to see AD really stepping up. So I think we get it. I think my Lakers still handle business, bro. Well, the series after the weekend, we have a series that's finally over. Sixers took care of the Nets. So obviously the Nets go on. They have a bright future ahead of them, I'm sure, with the draft picks coming up and the trades that they made. But they weren't ready for this task. They weren't ready even with the Sixers. Embiid is out and injured. So we may not be seeing Embiid, at least until the series is over, the Cleveland and Knicks series is over. We got to figure out if Embiid's going to be back on the court, because they had an MRI that said it didn't go as well as they had hoped. So hopefully Embiid can come back for the next series, but that series is over. And we also have some 3-1 leads for other teams. Phoenix Suns are up 3-1 heading back home. The Boston Celtics are now up 3-1 after beating Atlanta. And the Knicks, Matt, oh, what a performance from them against the Cavs. And I feel like I didn't see the 3-1 lead coming from them.
I don't think I've been more disappointed with somebody in the playoffs than Donovan Mitchell. I fully expected Donovan Mitchell to come to MSG and drop 30 plus each game, and he's just not been good, as much as I hate to say it. And this Knicks team smells blood. I think both of us saw this game going 7 without a doubt, and now I'm questioning, are they going to take care? Are they going to go back and are they going to take care of business? Is that going to be it? I look at, like, the rebounding numbers, and I think the inexperience for some of these Cleveland bigs is starting to catch up to them. And it's a moment, and MSG just looks too big. I think, Jared Allen had 4 rebounds in 40 minutes of playing basketball.
Yeah.
That's just unacceptable.
Bro, when I think about this, Donovan Mitchell was, in everybody, in all intents and purposes, was supposed to be a New York Knick. Like, they were supposed to be the ones that went out and got him. And it looks like Jalen Brunson, his whole team is like, we don't need Donovan Mitchell. And one of the players that I thought had a lot to prove was Donovan Mitchell coming into the playoffs. He's had some quiet performances, and for most of the second half yesterday, he was he didn't have a point,
No.
0 points up until later in the fourth quarter. Something like they got to figure something out there in Cleveland, because Donovan Mitchell has kind of shown that he can't get this team past the first round. He can't get any of the teams that he's been on with big performances, little performances. But this Knicks team really showed up in a major way. Jalen Brunson, and this is with Julius Randle
Randall's
on the bench.
He's on the bench
in the fourth quarter. Like, it's crazy.
I think Donovan Mitchell, there's all these question marks, and this was supposed to be like, you know, he has his team. He has like a good group of young players around him. And after game one performance, I was like, yeah, Donovan Mitchell's that guy. Like, he's a dog and all that. And now Cleveland's staring at themselves, and, you know, they have a first round exit potentially with home court advantage against a New York team where their best player, you can make the good Julius Randle, hasn't even been playing. Like, there's a lot. I wonder if reports are going to come out that he's injured, like what's going on with his health.
Yeah. Well, he was injured. Like, I know he was injured like coming into the series.
Yeah,
so
maybe it's worse than we think. But New York stepped up. Brunson's that guy. You know, I still think one of the biggest moves at the deadline is the Josh Hart trade. Like, Josh Hart is the guy you need in the playoffs. He's the heart, the hustle, the effort. Like, he makes such a huge impact for this New York Knicks team.
You know, and as much as impact as he makes, I'm very concerned about, like, Donovan Mitchell means not a superstar. And he's kind of more like Isaiah Thomas was for the Boston Celtics, like, good scorer, but then that's it. If you're not scoring, what else do you bring to the table? He's not a great defender. He's not a great facilitator. He's undersized. I'm not big on Donovan Mitchell, and I'm not coming on here to hate on him. But at the end of the day, this Cleveland team's going to have to make, after investing 4 first-round draft picks and all the capital that they traded over to go get Donovan Mitchell, I'm looking at this is a failed trade if they don't make it out the first round to a Knicks team that doesn't really have any true superstars, unless you want to call Julius Randle that. Jalen Brunson's developing in front of our very eyes, but it's not like he's a huge megastar. He wasn't even an all-star this season. Yeah. So when I look at Donovan Mitchell, this has potential to be one of the worst trades that was made this offseason, especially considering everything that was given up.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of trades where you're kind of questioning, like, all these draft picks and capital that people are giving up. I mean, we just talked about Minnesota, but the Gobert trade as well. Like, you know, Donovan Mitchell's this is his team. Like, he's supposed to step up and, you know, take this team past the first round and get past a New York team that, you know, yeah, New York's been good this year, but it's not like you're playing Milwaukee. It's not like you're playing Boston. Like, there's no excuses.
Like, this was a toss-up. And to me, when we talk about NBA playoffs, you talk about superstars in the playoffs. You talk about superstars elevating the level of play. Like, he dropped 38 in a loss. It's a lot of in a game one loss. Donovan Mitchell is a lot of empty stats right now.
Yeah.
That's the problem, is these empty stats. So if he goes and puts up 30, it doesn't always put you in a good position to win. We've seen him drop 40 and lose, 50 and lose in the playoffs in previous seasons. So you get this high scoring output, but if you're not able to contribute to the game in other ways, how can we call you a true superstar?
No.
So for everything, Donovan Mitchell is explosive. He's a great scorer. He's dropped 71. We've seen him do that. I don't know, man. This team is going to need another piece, and it sucks because they built around him.
Yeah.
Garland, Mobley, Jared Allen. There's a lot. Karis LeVert. There's a lot of really good pieces on this Cleveland team. It's not all on him, but I think I just expected more from Donovan Mitchell. If we want to call him a superstar or a defining player in this league, that's what I expect, because superstars really elevate their level of play.
I do want to show some love really fast, Justin.
No, we in hate. I'm in hate mode right now. We can't. Don't ruin the hate party, bro. This is we go to hate tangent, dog.
Some love to Russell Westbrook, because my man is balling out. He's playing without Paul George, without Kawhi Leonard, and I know they're losing and they're down in the series and they're not going to advance past the Phoenix Suns, but nobody's taken more hate from the media, from social media, all that stuff than Russell Westbrook. And he has like that. That was like prime Russell Westbrook.
Yeah.
I mean, he did everything he possibly could. And it just unfortunately was not enough. You know, they have really good role players, but they're missing their 2 superstars. Westbrook, you know what? I don't want to hear. I'm sure the media. I don't want to hear anything about Russell Westbrook right now because he has really turned around, especially ever since he came to this Clippers team. I'm really, really happy for him.
Well, that mystery injury with Kawhi Leonard, just kind of threw this entire series for a loop. We were like, "Oh, this is going to be a great series with Suns and Clippers," and then Kawhi just out. So it has been great to see Russ really play back-to-back 30-point games. He looks like the old Russ, but I think we all expect that out of Russ.
Yeah,
like when he's the guy. Russ, he looks like an MVP candidate. Dropping 20 and 8 and 8. Like we know for a fact what he looks like as the guy. The whole problem has been as a secondary player, can he accept his role? So as the two, he was even looking good behind, when it was just him and Kawhi out there. It's when he has to be relegated to that third person role, like he was in the Lakers when Paul George was healthy. So shout out to Russ for incredible performance, but I don't think any of us doubts the talent. It's just can you win with Russ being your number one guy? The Clippers haven't proved us right yet. It looks like that can't happen, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But who we want to talk about performances, guys stepping up. My boy De'Aaron Fox, bro. De'Aaron Fox has, if you weren't calling De'Aaron Fox a superstar beforehand, all that Ja Morant versus De'Aaron Fox talk, I found myself a little guilty of that. De'Aaron Fox has elevated his level of play. We're seeing a true transformation. That performance he put on, even in the loss, the way he was talking big to Draymond Green. They kind of went back and forth there for a minute. And, he had his back for Keegan Murray when Dre put a pretty hard foul on him. De'Aaron Fox is he's got to be a top 10 player right now.
Yeah, and they don't just hand out that clutch performance to anyone. They're that clutch award. I think if he had that last shot, like if he could have taken it, I think they win the game. I really do.
Everything to make sure he didn't take it.
I totally believe that he hits that shot. I mean, that three that he hit, Curry calls a timeout, gives a little, I like to, in my mind, he was showing some love to former King and Warrior Chris Webber there, because I don't know what the hell Steph Curry was doing. I really don't, man. No timeouts, 4-point game.
I know it's the end of the game, but you got to look over at your coach or something before
you're about to get fouled too. Like it's you can tell from Steve Kerr that he realized immediately what had happened. I was confused because I didn't even realize they didn't have any timeouts left. But then Fox, of course, hits a huge three. Warriors go down. I don't know what was worse, the timeout or the fact that Steph Curry took that shot with like 14 seconds left on the shot clock.
Yeah, it was strange, man. It was honestly one of those things where you could kind of sense the Warriors were like, okay, we got this game in the bag. And then the Kings were just like, nah, not so fast, bro. Like De'Aaron Fox, he won that award for a reason. He is the most clutch player in the league right now. There's nobody better in clutch time. And he happens to the ball happens to find his hands at the right time, in the right moment, in the right situation. Obviously, Harrison Barnes getting that last shot wasn't ideal, but they had to send two guys. Steph and Dre were both on De'Aaron Fox. Dre actually left. He left Harrison Barnes to make sure that he was on De'Aaron Fox. So, they're showing a lot of respect. As much as Dre is talking, they wanted to see Sacramento. As much as the crowd's been a factor, De'Aaron Fox, this is his coming out party.
Harrison Barnes had his moment too. That was like the storybook shot against his former team.
Sometimes it happens like that, man. So, I expect this series to continue to be dramatic in every form and fashion. It heads back to Sacramento. The home teams have won both games, tied up 2-2. The Sacktown, the crowd is about to be crazy in Sacramento coming up here very soon. So we got more NBA we could cover, obviously. We're going to talk some NFL draft here in just a second. We got our guy Sam Wagman coming in to join us here in just a few minutes. But there's been some conversations, Matt. Again, here we are. Aaron Rodgers is now supposed to be getting traded to the Jets again. Now it's happening. All of a sudden, draft week is here. Now Aaron Rodgers is getting. Oh, look at you getting all happy because he's getting out of the division.
Get the bad man out of the North, please. I beg.
What's taking this thing so long, man? I know we were waiting on the draft. We're waiting for key dates. But what's taking this Aaron Rodgers trade so long? Everybody in the world knows what's happening. Aaron Rodgers said, it's not going to be a wait this time. We're going to know about it. We know what they're trying to get draft capital-wise. We know that the Green Bay Packers are playing. They're holding everything close to the vest. What the hell is taking this deal so long? Get this shit done, man.
Seriously, just get him out. Get him out of Green Bay, please.
Well, we got a special guest joining us here to talk NFL draft. We're going to talk about some of the top players, right, in this draft. Some of the key players that could be going a little bit earlier, going a little bit later. some of the quarterbacks. Over this week, man, we're getting nothing short of any smoke screens, right? We're gonna get all types of smoke screens. Players that we've had rated high throughout the entire process are now undervalued. We got some guys shooting up draft boards for no particular reason at all, outside of the fact that it's draft week. So we're gonna bring in my guy Sam Wagman to join us. My guy Sam, how you living, dog?
I'm doing good. How are you guys doing?
Sam Wagner joining us with the Game Day NFL. And yes, we're enjoying the draft process, bro. My Niners, you know what I'm saying? We got some rumors about Trey Lance going in there, man. But what's been your thought overall on this draft, bro? Because we've seen a lot of wild rumors starting up out of nowhere. And it's kind of, it feels like years past, but this year it feels like there's just a lot of crazier things being said than ever before.
Yeah, it feels like no one knows anything at this point. I think that's just the general thought that has permeated everything. And most years it's like that, but this year especially, after one, the draft starts after one is what it seems like.
Yes.
As of today. But after that, the whole rest of the top 10 could be an absolute difference from what anybody thinks right now. And it definitely starts with the quarterbacks, right? I mean, we a couple of weeks ago, people thought it could be 1, 2, 3, 4, all quarterbacks. Now there's a possibility no quarterbacks go at 2 and 3. And, the Colts are the team that's going to have their pick of the quarterbacks after being, shoehorned into Will Levis a month ago. I mean, it's absolutely wild to me.
It is. Like Bryce Young was the guy, or CJ Stroud was the guy, right? The guy heading into the process. And now we got Bryce Young penciled in. I'm going to say penciled in, not even penned in, penciled in to be the number one guy, expected across every platform and every book that it's going to be Bryce Young. But this number 2 pick now, it gets real dicey because for so long it was quarterbacks going, CJ Stroud or Bryce Young, whoever you had there was going, number 2 pick. Now it's, they don't really need a quarterback. And then all of a sudden, we're starting to hear like some trade rumors, some Will Levis talk. What do you think is going to happen with this number 2 pick?
I actually think the Texans are going to stick to a best player available standpoint and take one of either Tyree Wilson or Will Anderson, because it really just seems like for them it was Bryce Young or bust. And everyone's been bringing up the Will Levis to Houston thing, but I do think that if Will Levis goes at 102, it's not to the Texans. And we've seen guys like Lance Zierlein seemingly confirm that by saying he has no idea where the Levis to Houston rumor and conjecture came from. And he was very specific in saying to Houston, he didn't rule out that Levis could go 102, but that's if a quarterback needy trade or a team comes up, to jump a team like the Colts or the Raiders or the Seahawks, teams that could all be looking to take a quarterback in those top 7 picks. So I personally think the Texans stay put. They take best player available there, one of 2 game-changing defensive linemen, and I think both of them would be, slam dunk picks for the Texans.
Yeah, well, like you said, one of the comments that came in says, no one knows anything is the most true thing you could say about the NFL draft. And I really think that is true because there's a lot of things that can happen in the draft, right? Like you mentioned, trades that could happen, player talk. One of the players that obviously is on the top of a lot of people's minds fantasy-wise, Bijan Robinson. My homie Matt here, he really wants him to go to Chicago. But Bijan Robinson, bro, there's been a lot of talk about where he goes in the draft. Is it top 10? Is it sliding down to the top 20? The best back until this week, clear consensus, best back in the NFL draft. What are your thoughts on him and the trade rumors that are going, the draft rumors that are going on about Bijan Robinson?
He could go to a lot of teams. I definitely think Chicago's an option at 9. I think the Falcons are an option at 8. The Eagles are an option at 10, though as an Eagles fan, I think Howie Roseman would rather drop dead before he drafts a running back in the top 10. But I think what's most likely is that he goes in somewhere in the middle part of the teams. Teams like the Lions are there. The Seahawks could trade down and look to grab a running back. I know they don't want Kenneth Walker there. The Chargers could trade up potentially if they think Austin Eckler's on his way out. The Eagles could trade down. The Bears could trade down. I think there's a lot of options for Bijan, and the NFL is mostly frowned upon running backs in the first round, but I think Bijan, is pretty much the best running back prospect we've had since Saquon Barkley. So I think it's warranted that he goes in the top half of the draft. I just don't know how likely it is that he goes in the top 10. Even with how good of a prospect he is, it's just such a waste of a top tier draft pick there that I'm not sure especially not a team that's ready to that isn't ready to contend for a Super Bowl. Sorry, Matt.
Oh,
But
you know what? Hey, I'll put it like this. The Bijan thing, like I looked at the Bears at 9 and I was thinking it's just too early to draft a running back. The problem is I'm a Texas Longhorns football fan, right?
Okay.
So it's kind of like my dream scenario. If they were to draft Bijan, I'd be over the moon, but I totally understand where you're coming from, taking a running back that early, especially when you need help on like the offensive line. If it happens, it happens. If not, it is what it is.
I would say one thing with certainty. Bijan will not be available past pick 26 with the Cowboys sitting there. I think that is his absolute floor. I don't see any way that he falls out of the first round. And we've heard that Jahmyr Gibbs could slide into the back as well. But yeah, I think Bijan's sweet spot is somewhere in the teens.
Yeah, it's crazy because Bijan, for being highly touted as a prospect, we've seen Saquon go early, we've seen Zeke go early, we've seen guys like Leonard Fournette go early, big, after college, big prospect wise, but they have secured a top 10 spot. And it seems like the consensus for Bijan is that he's probably going to slip out of the top 10, but before like the top 25 picks, right? So slotting in that 10 to 25 range. Why is that the consensus as opposed to him being like this can't miss prospect when there are some running back needy teams? They're sitting in the top 10.
Because it just works out the way that running back is valued and has been devalued by the NFL in the last decade or so. The age of a running back contract is just I think is the shortest tenure in the NFL among positions, just because they take such a battering every single game. It's so rare that you see a running back make it through a season completely healthy. And honestly, we've seen running backs come from every spot in the draft. We've seen 7th round running backs contribute. Khalil Herbert, who was picked in the 5th round, is a big stud and one of my favorite players. I mean, we've seen undrafted running backs really make a huge difference. It's not worth the draft capital, even with a star like Bijan. I think Bijan is a little bit of a different case because you can use him kind of coming out of the slot. He's like a poor man's slot receiver as well because he knows how to run routes. You don't see that with a ton of running backs. And that's a reason why I think Gibbs will probably go in the first round as well. He's a very adept pass catching back who can run routes. It's not just you flip him out to him in the flat and he takes off. He can actually run routes, arrow routes, stuff like that. But I think Bijan is a guy who will go in the teens and break that mold of recent years because he is that good. But I still think teams in that top half, not named Philadelphia, will be a little bit cautious. I think if there is a team in the early teens, it's got to be Philadelphia.
Well, you mentioned Philadelphia, and we had some interesting news come out of Philadelphia. Akbar Bajabiamila, we haven't heard that name in a while, put out some news over the weekend, supposedly broke some news that Derrick Henry was headed to the Eagles. Now, they didn't give up any draft capital or what the rumor exactly was for what the deal details were, but this was supposedly by his agency and by people that were close to him. Derrick Henry supposed to be going to the Eagles. Nothing has been confirmed nor denied, should I say. At a high level, there's been a lot of like, no, not really. But what do you think about these rumors when they came out? Man, I know you were probably like, what the hell's going on?
I was, yeah, and it was weird to me. We saw Jay Glazer kind of shoot it down really quickly. He came out and Jay's obviously very plugged in. He said, there's no truth to this currently. I don't think there's any truth to it currently. I could see the Eagles looking to Derrick Henry after the draft if something happens, if they do want a running back. It wouldn't shock me if they go in, and Henry's not going to be expensive. He's 29. he's got a little bit of an injury history. He's got a little bit of a weird contract as well. Tennessee is obviously desperate to rebuild and, ship off all its valuable assets before they go into the tank for like 5 years and be irrelevant again. It wouldn't shock me to see Henry moved, during the end stages of the draft or directly after the draft for a couple mid-round picks next season. Do I think it's the Eagles? They wouldn't shock me. This is the kind of move that Howie likes to make. Remember, he was able to move for Jay Ajayi a few years ago for a mid-round pick when Ajayi was considered a big name in the NFL for only a 4th-round pick at the trade deadline. It does strike me as odd that Giabaggi Miala would say that, like, it was so certain, like it's absolutely going to happen. He has a history. He was on NFL Network for a few years, so he has that, background as like a source guy who could be relied upon. This isn't like, he's some entertainment host just breaking news out of the wazoo or anything.
I don't know. Without the verifications on Twitter now I'm like, I don't know. Is this real? Is a parody account? Like, you never know.
I had to check at first. I wasn't sure, but yeah, it definitely seems like it's too random not to have a grain of truth to it. That's how I'll phrase it. So do I think it's happening? Probably not, but I'd say there's still like a 20% chance it happens.
Yeah, I was, they got the 10 and the 30. So I'm like, something is there's smoke, there's fire. We said that a lot here. Well, there's smoke, there's fire. Let's get into some other prospects, though. I want to talk about the quarterbacks real quick. Will Levis, CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, Hendon Hooker, right? And there's been talks, that 2 or 3 of those guys could go in the first round. And then last week, it was like, no, we're probably not going to see. We're only going to see one of those guys go in the top 3 before the Colts pick. Which one of these guys? Because we've heard, Hendon Hooker's name came into the conversations and rumors over the last few weeks. CJ Stroud was like the number 1 guy. Then there was a lot of kind of dirt thrown on his name over the last week. Has moving down draft boards. Anthony Richardson put on a show. He was in consideration in the top 3, and now his name's kind of floated down. All of a sudden, Will Levis is now considered to be a top 3 guy. What's going on with these quarterbacks, man?
So it's interesting. And, my buddy Jeff Bell from Football Guys brought up a really good point. And it really wasn't something I'd considered lately. Back in January and December, before all this draft, hullabaloo started, Will Levis was ahead of CJ Stroud on boards. Will Levis has always been considered a pro-ready prospect because of, the stuff that they brought with him to Kentucky, that he was running the same kind of pre-snap motions and calls that the Rams were running with Matthew Stafford at some point. That was a big point of emphasis. So, a lot of the reasoning is that Will Levis was always high on NFL teams' boards, never really left. And it was really just the draft and fantasy community that moved him down. Because let's face it, we tend to get in our own heads and think we know better than a lot of these GMs at points. And it's not a slight against anybody. It's just it tends to happen that way.
It is a slight.
It's a slight against all of us.
It is a slight.
It's a slight against all of us. Because let's face it, these guys are where they are for a reason, and we're helmet scouts for a reason. So I think the point is that for a lot of these teams, Will Levis has always been high on their draft board. Do I buy that he should go ahead of CJ Stroud at this point? Again, this is me putting on my helmet scout thing here. I don't. I think Stroud showed us everything that he needed to show us in games against Georgia, in games against Penn State, all the games where he needed to show something. Stroud has showed that he can handle pressure at the highest level. He can handle the talent at the highest level. He can handle everything on the mental side. And I'm not willing to buy into, a supposedly low S2 score as the reason why he should fall. Levis, on the other hand, has really not shown that he can handle NFL defensive talent. His processing power has not been strong. He can't sense when someone's coming up behind him. I talked to Thor Nystrom from Fantasy Pros on our podcast last week, and he was very flat out and said, Will Levis has not shown any reason why he should be ranked ahead of all of these guys, that are not named Bryce Young. He's shown that he has the projectionable talent, but he hasn't shown that he has what it takes between the ears. he ranked Anthony Richardson above him. He ranked CJ Stroud above him because let's face it, everyone is so hyper focused on Richardson's accuracy issues that they're ignoring the fact that he had 3 short white guys that were playing wide receiver the entire year for him in a brand new offense.
Hey, we seen Brady do well with that, so I don't want to hear that. We seen Brady do well with that.
It's his 3rd offensive coordinator in as many seasons and head coach. I mean, it's it's a struggle to adapt that way. Will Richardson be ready to play right away? Who knows? So I don't know, but I do think Richardson's talent level is absolutely where it should be, and he's 3 years younger than Levis as well. My guess is still that Levis goes 4th out of these guys, and I don't even think Hendon Hooker is a 1st-round caliber prospect. He's the new age Brandon Weeden, basically.
Whoa, that's crazy. He's been like thrown into the conversation of this first round. And you mentioned Anthony Richardson being the talent that he is. Here's a question I got for you. Who do you think out of these guys could slip out of the first round? Because there's been a lot of hype about all these quarterbacks and where they should go in the draft. Hendon Hooker's a first-round guy now. Anthony Richardson, most athletic QB the league's ever seen. Will Levis has the arm, but like somebody's we saw it last year with Malik Willis. There was a lot of hype on him. He happened to slip completely out of the 1st and 2nd round. If you had to pick one of these guys to like have a massive, massive fall out of Stroud, Levis, Richardson, Hooker, who do you think it is?
To me, I mean, if you're including Hooker in there, it's definitely Hooker for me because I think a lot. Look, Josh Heupel is one of the most creative play callers in college football. He actually might be the most creative play caller in college football, and it's a big reason why I'm not that big on Jalen Hyatt as a prospect either, because he was just completely schemed into favorable coverages all the time. Same with Hooker. I think it's extremely correlated between the two of them. If I'm taking between the top 4 guys, it's probably Richardson, given that he probably has the most questions about him and he's the most projection-based quarterback out of that group. But out of the 5, it's definitely Hooker because I see so many things that I don't love about him, and the people that I've talked to have just confirmed that as well, that he was a product of so many good things that came out of that Tennessee offense that he was schemed up to be, but he really wasn't that good otherwise.
I'm gonna put on my GM helmet hat and say you got good, what I'm saying? We got good information on this fantasy side and this analyst side, man. Don't get it twisted. Who's the best receiver in the draft? Obviously, JSN's the one that's everybody's expecting him to go. To me, he fits more as like a slot guy though. But when you think about big body, you think about Quentin Johnston, you think about Jalen Hyatt. Zay Flowers' name has climbed and creeped up draft boards. And we talked about this on our last show, me and Matt. He worked out with Pat Mahomes. And so obviously there's some interest there. Who's the best receiver in the draft? Just let us know.
The best receiver? Ooh. It's a little bit tough for me to say. I do think it's Jackson Smith-Njigba. I think, I do think he's going to be the first one that goes. I don't necessarily think that he is far and away the best. I do think that Quentin Johnston is definitely up there. I think he's got a lot to work on. I think he's got the highest. If you're like projecting like 4 or 5 years out, I think Johnston has a fair shot to be the highest. He just has to work on his route running a little bit. If he can learn a full route tree, and he can kind of work on using his body or not using his body as much, because he kind of tends to fall back on that option and not focus on the route that he's trying to run as much as just going up and using his body to secure the ball. I think that he has a very fair shot to be the best wide receiver in this class. And I do think he's going to be drafted that way because teams, like you said, there's not a lot of big bodied guys in this draft. It's a big short king draft.
Yeah.
we're in full short king season here at the wide receiver position. But apart from Quentin Johnston, probably my favorite wide receiver in this draft is Josh Downs out of North Carolina. Now, Downs is a guy that strictly profiles as a slot right now, but he also has the best contested catch percentage in this class out of everybody. And he's 5'9". He's 170 pounds. This is the guy that plays well above his height. He's a fantastic asset. The Bills have looked at him as a very possible option there. And I would love to see this kid play with Josh Allen. And the huge thing for me is that, a lot, all the talk about these top 30 draft visits that teams have, they typically take these visits when they have questions for these prospects. It's either scheme fit or maybe it's a character question, or maybe, they just want to confirm a prior bias for themselves. Josh Downs only had 2 reported top 30 visits. Teams know what they're getting when they're looking at Josh Downs. He leaves it all out on the field. The questions are kind of all answered for him. So when they draft him, they know exactly what they're getting into. They know what to expect, and they're drafting him for a specific reason. There's not really a lot of projection there. That tells me that he's very NFL ready. And typically we've seen those guys perform very well early on right away as fantasy contributors.
Predictable, not really a big project. I like that. All right. I got 3 questions for you before we end it. Like 3 questions for you. Who's going to Chicago for Matt? We got to know who's going to Chicago.
I wanted to ask, what are the chances Jalen Carter goes to the Bears?
I think it's high.
You think it's high? Okay,
yeah,
I like where you're going with this.
It's weird, and I was reading this morning. I saw, I forget who it was. I was scrolling through Twitter like an hour ago, and I saw it. There were like 6 or 7 different like insiders / analysts that all said different things about Jalen Carter. Todd McShay said the Seahawks have no interest and the Lions have no interest. Mel Kiper said the Seahawks are very interested and the Lions could pick him. And it was all over the place. It's almost like they're feeding all these teams different intel. And Jalen Carter, the projection is really all over the place. That's kind of when you see guys like that possibly fall. We could see the Bears move back up to get him. There have been different reports on whether they like him or not that much to go up and get him. I feel like if he falls into their lap, they'll take him. I don't know if they'll trade up to get him. They'd have to trade up to 6 or 5. I think both the Seahawks and the Lions could definitely take him. Personally, I think the Cardinals would be absolute fools not to take him at 3. And just stay there unless they just get offered a king's ransom by a team willing to come up for a quarterback. But yeah, I definitely think the Bears could take him, and they really should, because if they don't take him, it's been heavily rumored that the Eagles promised him that they would take him. And that's why he canceled all his top 10 or all his visits with teams outside of the top 10, because the Eagles said they would stop the slide. They said, you're not getting past us. It's definitely a Howie Roseman pick. But I think Poles would be an absolute genius if he was able to move down from 1 to 9 and pick the player that they were obviously going to pick at 1 anyways 2 months ago before they made the trade.
I would not be mad at that. Like I feel like that's a steal. That reminds me of that movie, that Draft Day movie, bro. When you just get ultra strategic, right? Like, you got the picks too. So, is Trey Lance getting traded?
I can't even.
I'm a Niner fan. You gotta let me keep it real with me, man, because I love my guy Trey Lance, man, but it feels like these rumors are starting to heat up.
I think there's two. I think there's 2 sides of thought. Do I think he deserves to get traded? No. Do I think he might, because bad football teams or bad run football organizations do stupid things sometimes? Yes. So, I'm skeptical of how the 49ers have approached this whole quarterback situation over the last 18-ish months, with Jimmy Garoppolo coming back after they said he was gone. Trey Lance being seemingly shifted to 3rd after they said he was going to have every single chance to take the starting job. They brought Sam Darnold in, and now he's, reportedly he was told he'd have a first shot at first team offense. Brock Purdy, who I think is possibly the worst quarterback in the NFL, being talked about as some sort of savior.
The worst in the NFL?
I don't think he's good.
You got to expand on that, bro. The worst in the NFL. We see.
I think all right, so I will expand on it. I think really any quarterback, if you have a team that's got a ton of talent and it's being run by a very creative play caller like Kyle Shanahan, and I think Shanahan is probably the best play caller in the NFL, I think anybody can come in and really run that, which is probably why they brought Sam Darnold in and said you could take first team reps at some point because we think you can run that. That, to me, that signals, a big emphasis on the fact that they think really anybody can run this. Again, Jimmy Garoppolo ran this system for 3 years, and he's really not that good either. I don't know if when you look up, a good quarterback in a book, you get a guy with Brock Purdy's traits. There's a reason this guy was selected last in the draft. So,
that's a strong take because there's a lot. I kind of started to get riled up here a little bit myself as a Niner fan, bro. Like the worst, he was 7-0 as a starter, or whatever the numbers were as a starter.
But
he
really,
what handle business, bro?
Did he go 7-0 or did the 49ers go 7-0?
Quarterback wins are quarterback stat. I'm just gonna mic drop on that. Wins are a quarterback stat. I'm in that boat. So I think he handled business. The Niners are a great team. But I don't know a lot of other quarterbacks that would have gone 7-0 during that stretch though. We got Trey Lance in there. Maybe that doesn't happen. So I'm a Trey Lance guy, by the way. If you didn't even know, by those comments you couldn't tell. But I'm a Trey Lance guy. I gotta give respect is due.
I think Lance has gotten really kind of shafted here by the Niners the last few months because I really don't think they gave him his due. I mean, this guy was the 3rd overall pick. You mortgaged your future in terms of trading multiple first-round picks to go up and get this guy. Whether it was supposed to be Mac Jones or not, I will still die on the hill that it was supposed to be Mac Jones, and Lynch and Kyle Shanahan got bullied out of making the decision that they wanted to make by the media, which again signals to me that the 49ers aren't as strong of an organization as people think they are, despite the winning record. When you can let the media influence you that way, I think it says something.
Talking real spicy about my Niners, bro.
Trust me, you should have heard the way I talked about the Eagles until they won the Super Bowl 5 years ago. But I do think that Trey Lance is a good quarterback. I guess we're back to where we started. Do I think he'll get traded? Probably. I just don't think he deserves to. I think he really deserves to have his shot. I don't think he ever got a shot to run this team. Bad injuries. He got thrown out in the monsoon of all games and looked decent. I mean, he never got a shot to really get things going. And I think they're trying to move on from him to avoid the possibility that they were wrong.
Oh, I can see that. And, I think they know what they got with Purdy too, even if he's not talented, like you said.
I will say that
they
know what they have in Purdy. They have someone that can run their offense. I don't know if he gets you over the top. Like personally, I don't think they would have beat Philadelphia even if he hadn't gotten injured last year. That's my stance. And I got ripped apart for it last year. Every single person said, "Oh, Purdy was healthy. The 49ers win that game pretty easily." And I just didn't see it.
I'm actually with you on that, but the players felt that way too. Like the players felt the opposite. Excuse me. The players were like, "Hey, if we got Brock Purdy, we would have won. We would have won the whole thing." So I don't know, man. I want to see some stability, bro. So after the draft, hopefully we have some stability. But Sam, I appreciate you joining. Appreciate the time. Plug yourself, and then after you plug yourself, drop your NFL draft hot take. I want to hear whether it's a trade, whether it's a player falling, somebody gets reached on. Drop your biggest NFL hot take for the draft.
Okay. Well, you guys can find me on Twitter at Swagman95. And like Justin said at the beginning of the show, I have just signed on to be the Game Day's news sports content editor over there and doing all sorts of stuff over there, betting, content strategies, social content, all kinds of stuff. And then I'm also over at Football Guys to do all kinds of fantasy football stuff with them as well. But let's see. My draft hot take is that the New England Patriots trade for Trey Lance.
Woo!
With the
trade
14th
for
pick
Trey
in the draft.
Lance?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if I wanted to go to New England though. Damn,
you asked for a hot take.
I love it. I'm not even going to compete with it no more, man. Sam, I appreciate you, my dog.
I appreciate you guys having me, Matt, Justin. A pleasure, man.
Yes, sir. We'll see you next time, my man.
Take it easy,
absolutely,
Sam.
Guys. Have a good one.
All right, you too. Sam Wagner, man. He's a good dude, bro.
What a great guy.
Yeah,
he loved,
insightful,
hey, he went to 49ers. He was going right at you for all those.
Yeah, he's talking a little spicy about my Niners, though. I got to talk to him about that outstream, bro.
I think he saw the hat. I think he saw the hat and knew what he was going for.
He did, bro. He was like, worst quarterback, organization comments. And then the spicy take to her. He said Lance to the Pats. My guy Dustin said, "Wow, Lance to the Pats would be crazy.
That would be nuts. That would be so crazy.
Lance with Belichick?
Oh my gosh,
bro, he still got us talking about it, dog. NFL draft is here. All kind of rumors coming up, man. But you guys make sure it's Thursday. This Thursday coming up, we'll have more draft coverage on tomorrow's episode. Matt, did you hear, speaking of NFL draft, NBA draft is also going to be coming up here. They're going to have the lottery picks here very soon. But Imani Bates declared for the NBA draft, a guy who was the next Kevin Durant, right? He was big coming out of high school, finally declaring from the the NBA draft after a kind of a rocky path here. We saw him in Memphis, got in a little bit of trouble. What you think about Imani Bates, bro?
I think he's either going to be like a superstar or a huge bust. And I have no idea because there would be games that I would see that he drops like 30 plus points. I don't really know what type of competition he was playing against, but he was on that Memphis team has had a lot of talent. I think Duran was on that team as well. Like, then they transferred. Oh, I'm blanking on the star guard that they transferred for this past offseason. Do you know what I'm talking about? David Davis, I think. What's his name? I'm blanking.
I don't know, yeah.
He's
I
a
probably
stud,
know if I heard it.
He's a stud. But Imani Bates is going to be so interesting to see how like everything plans, like with the combine, where he I don't even know where's this guy. Is he supposed to be projected a top 10 pick? I know obviously out of high school he was the next superstar in the league and
like the guy.
Like I remember seeing like his press conference when he was announcing where he was going to go to college. Like if that's national news, you're the real deal.
Yeah, he kind of fell off here. So hopefully it wasn't like the stuff off the field. I know he wasn't getting a whole lot of PT at Memphis. So shout out to Imani Bates for actually making a decision. We'll see where he gets drafted. He's probably going to be a mid-tier prospect. I got a guy, Ryan Hammer, man. He's a good friend of mine, college analyst. So we'll bring him on, talk NBA draft as it gets a little closer. But guys, we're gonna head out, man. Before we head out, make your predictions for tonight, Matt. Lakers, Grizz, who wins?
Lakers by 4. I think it's a close game. I think the Lakers are going to go down 10 in the first half, and they're going to come swimming back in the second. I think we see LeBron drop 33, 9, and 8.
33, 9, and 8. I love it. I expect a triple-double from LeBron in a very close win. I think we get a game winner on one of the sides. I'm going to say the Lakers hit a game winner, but it'll be like one of the mystery guys.
Give me a game winner, please. Come on.
We almost had a game winner in that Warriors game, but it was a miss. But we're going to get the game winner tonight. And then the other game, we got Bucks Heat. Should be a good, entertaining matchup. Giannis is back. Who you got?
I got Bucks by 10. I think I think Milwaukee realized. I mean, this is a team that I think wins the NBA. I have them winning the NBA championship. And, Giannis comes back. It's funny because Butler went out with that same lower back issue, and then he came back in, right, in game 3, which I thought was really, really interesting. Milwaukee needs to win this game. Like if they lose this game, they're in some serious trouble, even if Giannis is, we don't know where his health is. But Ja Morant was out, then he came back at a big game. I kind of expect the same thing from Giannis.
Yeah, it's a playoff time, man. Those nagging injuries. We see superstars play at that level, even through injury. Give me Giannis. We've seen him do it before with the mystery injury. So I like Giannis to have a big game. The Bucks win. I'm gonna go by 5. I think the Heat keep it close. So appreciate y'all tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow talking a little bit more NFL draft. Obviously, NBA playoffs continue. Make sure y'all download the Champions Round app. Subscribe to the page. We'll see you on the next one. Peace out.